As you all now know, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department suffered the loss of a police officer early this morning. That loss came in a homicide that occurred in North Las Vegas. First thing I'm going to do is go through basically the information that you already have again, and then I will give you an update on what has transpired since the last time we've corresponded. At about 12:18 this morning, we had a 911 call from a residence in the 1100 block of Emerald Stone. In that call, it was related that there was a person with a gunshot injury in the house. Our officers responded and found the decedent near the garage, and they began an investigation. As we quickly learned, this victim was a Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department or police officer at the time of his death. The investigation so far reveals that he was inside of his garage at the time and was approached by one or more, we know more than one, suspect, and a gun battle ensued. The officer was fatally struck, and one of the suspects was injured as well. At this point, the injured suspect, 18-year-old Prentice Marshall, is in police custody at University Medical Center with non-life-threatening gunshot wounds. Another suspect, 19-year-old Saul Williams, Jr., has been booked already into the North Las Vegas Detention Center. Once Prentice Marshall is released from UMC, he too will be booked into the North Las Vegas Detention Center on the charge of murder with a deadly weapon. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to Chief Forty, and then I will entertain questions at the end of the press conference. Chief.
Thank you. First off, let me start by thanking all of you for being here this afternoon and coming to this press conference with myself, the sheriff. It's a tough day here, once again, in the community of Las Vegas, and these days are never easy for any of us. This morning when I got the call at home from my assistant chief, those calls when they come in the middle of the night are never good calls, and right off the bat you know something is really wrong. And I was told that we had a homicide that had occurred in our city, and Assistant Chief Chronister informed me. He says, Joe, you have to know that this is a Metropolitan Police officer who was murdered. And, you know, obviously, being in law enforcement, when you hear something like this, your heart sinks and the pit of your stomach just turns. It doesn't matter what department you work for. It doesn't matter what agency you're with. It's a tremendous, tragic loss in the law enforcement community of Southern Nevada today with this young man who was murdered senselessly at his home this morning. I want to express my sincere condolences to the family of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police officer who was murdered in his home, protecting himself and his family. Our hearts go out to you and to all of your family as a result of this horrible loss. My condolences to the officers and men and women and the staff members of the Metropolitan Police Department. You truly have our hearts regarding this loss today. Truly a tragic loss for this community. All of us who are in law enforcement will feel this loss as one. The North Las Vegas Police Department and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, we all share a great deal in common. We work together on so many different issues in this community, and we all work so hard each and every day to make sure, and we always strive that we have the safest communities. And we truly have a tremendous partnership that I know will go on for as long as we stand side by side. To the men and women who have worked tirelessly through a long and difficult night investigating this crime that is so far going to result in the arrest of 2 of the individuals who are responsible for this senseless killing. Thank you. Thank you so much for all the hard work you do for us and for the citizens of this community. Now, having said that, I feel I will turn this time over to the sheriff, Sheriff Doug Gillespie.
Thanks, Joe. Well, good afternoon. As Chief Forty thanked you, I'd like to thank you as well for not only being here this afternoon, but for the way that you've covered this particular event, as well as others that impact my organization. And sometimes I don't feel that you collectively as a group get credit where credit is due, and one of these situations where I want to thank you as well as the management at your stations. Early this morning, the Metro family suffered a tragic loss. Before I address that tragedy, I want to thank the men and women of the North Las Vegas Police Department for their professionalism, skill, and sensitivity in handling the murder of one of our Metro officers. As police professionals, we are all familiar with 2 things: the sometimes unspeakable aftermath of random criminal activity and the ever-present possibility of our own injury or death. However, I cannot think of a time when our department and our community had to deal with both in the same incident. That happened this morning, and it created a deep hole which will never be filled. Officer Nettleton was a good police officer and a great husband, father, and family member. He leaves behind 2 small children who now only know the greatness of their father by the stories they are told, rather than knowing firsthand. Both as a United States Marine protecting our great nation and as a police officer protecting our community, Officer Nettleton put service and sacrifice before self. When he made the ultimate sacrifice, the community members he was protecting were members of his own family. As a department, our hearts, our thoughts, and our prayers go out to the Nettleson family. He is a true hero. My deepest sympathies go out to his family, his squad mates, to our Metro family, and to this entire community, because I, for one, know the support that this community gives to law enforcement, and I know this community feels this pain as well. We have all suffered a great loss today, a senseless loss. At this time, I'll turn it back over to the North Las Vegas Police Department. However, I will stay for questions afterward.
Prepared to answer questions.
Is there a chance that there are more than these just 2 suspects, or are there possibly more out there?
Well, as you know, this only occurred about a half a day ago. This is an ongoing investigation. We do have 2 people in custody at this time. And to speculate as to where the investigation would lead us from this point would be improper at this time. So right now, the facts that I can give you is about the 2 people that we do have in custody.
Can you give us the spelling of the 2 suspects' names?
Yes, I can, Antonio. The first suspect's first name is Saul, S-A-U-L. His last is Williams, Jr. He's 19 years old of North Las Vegas. And the second is 18-year-old Prentiss, P-R-E-N-T-I-S-S, Marshall, M-A-R-S-H-A-L-L, of North Las Vegas.
And can you say how you guys arrested them? Like, did a tip lead to them, or can you specify at all how they were apprehended?
Right, exactly what led us to these two suspects we're not going to talk about today. That's a confidential part of the investigation at this point. I can tell you, though, that there is probable cause for the arrest of both of them, and that's why one of them has been booked into the jail already, and the other one will be once he's released from UMC.
Sergeant, we saw some of your, a canine unit as well as some other detectives about a block south of the crime scene this morning, searching through houses. Can you tell us what you were looking for?
Well, I'm not going to go into exactly what connection there is between any of the residences around Officer Nettleton's residence and the crime at this point, because it is still an ongoing investigation. So right now, it's just suffice it to say that the officers went to this. They got called out to this at midnight. They've been working it ever since, and in fact, the detectives are out right now following up leads. Murder investigations don't end with the arrest of suspects. They go on for a long time before there's even charges brought, and then even into the court process. There's still investigation ongoing. So right now, I'm not going to cover any of the specifics of what that investigation is that is occurring right now.
Do either Marshall or Williams Jr. have records with any of the departments that you know of?
You know what? I think we'll be able to give you a little bit more information on the two suspects over the next couple of days. But right now, we're going to just stand with the information that I gave you specifically about them at this time.
And why do you have them known at this point?
Again, that's another thing that it would be way early to speculate on. We know that, well, we don't know for certain, but the preliminary investigation indicates that this is a random crime, that he wasn't targeted for this specifically prior, that this was a target of opportunity type of crime, and beyond that, I don't want to go into any further what the dynamics of what occurred during the incident itself, because again, it's still under investigation.
Can you tell us more about the injury that one of the suspects suffered?
You know what? I'm not going to talk about the injuries that the suspect has, other than that they're non-life threatening. That we do expect him to be released from UMC sometime in the relatively near future, and when that occurs, he will be booked. He is in custody at this point, and he will be under police guard for the entire time that he's at UMC.
Can you explain to us, I don't know, is this considered an in the line of duty? I don't know if this is for the sheriff or not. Is this considered an in the line of duty death, or off duty?
This will be treated as in line of duty death.
Can you explain why?
When we use deadly force as a police organization, you are held to the standard of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. That's clearly specified in our manual. The other part of this is, I believe, that would be consistent with how we have handled other type situations. If he wasn't acting in the capacity of a police officer out there this morning, I would like for someone to convince me otherwise.
Sheriff, how are you doing? I know that this has been a really tough year for the department, and I know something like this is just senseless.
Well, how am I doing? I've just lost another member of my organization tragically. I'm doing as good as you're going to be under those circumstances. You know, I'm very proud of what it is that my organization, as well as policing as a profession, stands for. I've been involved in it for a very long time. I know the risks inherent in what it is that we do for a living. But that doesn't make events like this any easier. And my job today is to be standing out front and showing the community that we as an organization have suffered a loss, but we are out there keeping this community safe. And that's the message that I not only want the community to hear, but also members of my organization, the North Las Vegas Police Department, Henderson, Boulder City, Mesquite, Nevada Highway Patrol, all of us that work together in this county to keep our community safe, that's what we need to stay focused on. The North Las Vegas Police Department has done a phenomenal job in a very short period of time identifying these suspects and taking them into custody. And now it's our job to continue to go out there and keep the streets safe. Thank you.
There were a couple of questions that were asked of me earlier today, and I'd like to respond to a couple of them. One, I want to make sure that it's clear that officers that investigate a crime like this, or any crime as heinous as a murder, they disassociate themselves from the distraction of what the association might be to them. In this case, it was a fellow officer. Sometimes it's a child, sometimes it's a father, sometimes it's a brother. They have to deal with family members who are impacted deeply by this. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that regardless of that, our investigators have gone out and investigated this in the same manner they would any homicide or crime of this magnitude.
Are you able to tell us what time the suspects were apprehended?
You know what? I'm not going to give you the times right now, and the only reason I'm not is because I don't have them.
Okay.
We'll release that once I get the booking photos and so forth that we would want to get out. Of course, we can't give you the booking photo on the one that's in the hospital yet, and the time that he was taken in custody would be the time that we arrived at the hospital. So
I don't know if this is a question for you or the sheriff or chief. Does this issue, the incident, speak to the larger fact of the home invasions that have been happening recently in the Las Vegas area? There's been 2 prior to this, and I think less than a week, where there's been deadly shootings.
well, I think one thing this speaks to is that this police officer obviously acted in the self-defense and defense of his family, and in fact in defense of the larger community, because these were 2 criminals who were trying to prey upon someone that they felt was a target of opportunity. So what that has to do with long-term with home invasions, I don't know, but clearly in this case, this was a home invasion type robbery that unfortunately ended in the death of a police officer, but that police officer acted courageously under the circumstances that were presented to him, and that makes him a hero to me.
Do you know how many shots were fired and how many times the officer was hit?
Right, we know as a police department, North Las Vegas doesn't go into those things. You'll be able to get things like that as far as injuries. You would be able to get from the coroner, and as far as the number of rounds that were fired, we don't like to give that out because it's particularly this soon in an investigation, because they're still trying to piece together exactly what happened out there.
Do we know if can you say if both suspects had guns, or was it just one?
Not going to go into that. I can tell you that at least one of them was armed, because he is the person that shot the officer. Anything else?
Both of them were booked for murder, correct?
We haven't booked the one that's in UMC yet. No, we haven't booked him in Absentia. I think we're expecting him to be released from the hospital, but he is in custody and under guard.
Is that the recommended charge? Murder with a deadly weapon?
The charge for both of them will be murder with a deadly weapon. And whatever associated charges that would come from that, there are other charges that would probably arise. That's one of the things that the detectives will have to sort out. Understand that our detectives have been out since midnight on this, and they're still out now investigating it. So, but those are the types of things that they'll have to answer long term. But this is clearly murder with a deadly weapon.
How many people were in the Nettleton household at the time? We heard that he had some relatives from out of town, in town as well.
Right. I'm not going to discuss what family members were home in the residence, but I can tell you that there was family members home in the residence at the time, and that his actions were clearly served to defend them.
What's the message to the community?
This, but do we know if the officer identified himself as a police officer?
Right. Again, that's a good question, but it's a fact that's part of the investigation, and is something that we're not going to talk about at this early juncture. I just don't want to, the main thing is we don't want to compromise this investigation in any way by giving information before it's been clearly identified as factual. I mean, this is early. We know we have probable cause to arrest both of these people, but I don't want to go into a bunch of details the day of a homicide.
Are you looking at any other suspects right now, or do you believe you have the two men that are responsible for this crime?
Right now, I'm just going to say that it is an ongoing investigation, and we're going to continue to look to follow leads and take those paths that those leads send us down. And should there turn out to be someone else, then we'll make that known at the time that it happens.
Can you give the spelling of the officer's name, please?
I'm going to answer this one other question, then we're going to be done.
What's the
And I'll
message-
get that too.
The message to the community, since as a citizen, I don't have any training to defend my family, but as an officer, they do. So, and I heard a lot of the neighbors leave their garage open.
Mhm.
You know, they leave the opportunity for somebody to just go in there and try to take something.
Right.
So what's the message to the community in general?
Well, one of the things I want to make absolutely clear is leaving your garage door isn't an invitation to crime. And that doesn't absolve anyone of the responsibility for committing a crime if they see someone's garage door open. On the other hand, as a police department, we do recommend that people leave their garage doors closed. In this case, though, there was reason for him to have his garage door open. But as far as the message to the community is, you have to be aware of your surroundings all the time. Do what you can to safeguard yourself. And sometimes those whatever actions a police officer might take would be different than an average citizen. And I think that's it.